Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's LexCast. What we're going to discuss today is going to be, well, first of all, the financing of federal prosecutors' offices, and second of all, the ethics of the death penalty versus the ethics of supermax prisons. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Ken Lammers. It's time to fire up the Commodore and watch a little bit of Cltv.
Initiating startup sequence.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
So the first thing we're going to discuss today is going to be funding for U.S. attorneys' offices. This is something that came into the news in the last week. It was in the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and what it was based upon was a letter by two congressmen from relevant committees. Let me see, the congressmen were Waxman and Conyers, and they were Democratic congressmen writing to the Justice Department saying, what's going on? Why are the offices understaffed and undersupplied? And it caused kind of a buzz and some reactions and that. So what I'm going to do is read portions of the letter to you, and then I'm going to read the reactions which were in the papers. So here's the letter. Here's the problem that gets laid out here. In Los Angeles, there are 190 positions for assistant U.S. attorneys. 40 of those are vacant. In D.C., 40 are vacant. Maryland, there are 30 vacant. Chicago, between 25 to 35 vacant. In smaller offices, there are problems of similar proportions. In Oregon and Arizona, there are 40 positions, and 8 to 10 of those positions are vacant. In addition, U.S. attorney offices lacking funds have started to make indigents pay for photocopies. And indigent, by the way, is somebody who doesn't have any money. Pay for photocopies of Brady material. And Brady material is that material which would tend to show that you are not guilty. So you have to pay to prove that you're not guilty. Forced to defend this policy in U.S. District Court, prosecutors explained that it was necessary because the office has seen in recent years a reduction of about 20% in its allocation from main justice, with further reductions anticipated in the future. They go on further to lay out the problem. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia has adopted a similar policy of charging defendants for photocopying. In the U.S. offices in Los Angeles, basic items like binder clips are in short supply. In the U.S. Attorney's Office in Virginia, federal prosecutors delivering documents to judges' chambers in Virginia ask for envelopes to be returned so that they can be reused. In the office in Chicago, assistant U.S. attorneys have been instructed to conserve accordion folders. In one U.S. attorney's office, an electronic lock has been placed on the supply closet, so federal prosecutors must submit requisition forms to get supplies like paper clips. Okay, so that's the problem. And you would think that this problem comes out of the fact that money's going elsewhere, things are being allocated to, soldiers in the field or something like that. But no, that's kind of the conundrum here. Here's what they ask. One basic question is, where has the money gone? According to budget information from the Department of Justice, appropriations for the U.S. Attorney's account have increased from $1.349 billion in fiscal year 2001 to $1.588 billion in fiscal year 2006. That's an increase of 15%, which is more of an increase than inflation. So in real money, they've gotten more money, and they've still had this happen. The disparity between increased funding for U.S. attorneys overall and the drastic shortages in staff and supplies in individual offices raises questions about Justice Department management. That might be a little bit of a cheap shot, but you do have to kind of wonder about it. Okay, so the newspapers, I don't know if this was like AP did it and the others just adopted it or what, but the newspapers basically went to two people to get information. The first was Justice Department spokeswoman. Justice Department spokeswoman Kathleen M. Blomquist laid much of the blame on Congress, saying members have repeatedly rejected administration requests for higher funding and have taken back $120 million intended for prosecutor pay raises and other expenses since 2003. As this trend has developed, we have urged Congress to support the President's request to fully fund the U.S. Attorney's offices so that we can return additional prosecutors to the courtroom, Blomquist said in a statement. So, then we go to a gentleman by the name of Dennis Boyd. And Dennis Boyd is the Executive Director of the National Association of Assistant U.S. Attorneys. Didn't even know there was such a thing, but he's their Executive Director. He says the number of unfilled full-time positions in U.S. Attorneys' offices nationwide have jumped from 198 in fiscal year 2004 to 765. 765 vacancies. He goes on to say that, well, during the reorganization, after Homeland Security was, the Office of Department of Homeland Security, whatever, was formed, certain things were taken away from Justice, the INS in particular, and that was a cash cow that they lost, and that we've had some rescissions that have amounted to 10% cuts, which is a big hit for a U.S. Attorney's Office. That's from the LA Times. The Washington Post quotes him as saying, Boyd noted that the U.S. Attorney's offices returned about $3.5 billion to the government through fines, settlements, and other forms of restitution, more than twice what they cost to run. So what can we make of all this? Well, not much, really. To be honest with you, the news articles are pretty shallow. What I kept waiting to see was, okay, here's what everybody says about the money, and here, when we do this budgetary analysis, is what we see is actually happening with it. Yes, I realize that would take quite a bit of work, probably, and would bore the daylights out of most people, but it was what I was looking for. Instead, what we get is, quotes from the letter from the congressman, basically their statement, a statement from the DOJ rep. She was giving DOJ, Department of Justice's position, saying, it ain't our fault, and statement from the prosecutor's representative saying, we need more prosecutors, we need more money for prosecutors, which would basically be his job as a prosecutor's representative. I really would have liked to have seen some more in-depth analysis here so I could make a decision and, take a position. But I don't really feel I can because it's just not the information here. So let's talk about a little bit more of the other things I saw here in this. And, well, there are a couple other points I'd like to go over. First of all, got to admit, as a defense attorney who's walked into the federal prosecutor's office a couple times, it's not exactly easy to feel sorry for the federal prosecutors and their budgetary problems. I will admit, when I was, the last federal case I had, I remember sitting in court and listening to a couple of the AUSAs talk about how they were clamping down on them money-wise. But, if you're a defense attorney who's doing indigent defense, who at the time I couldn't even afford a secretary, walks into the federal prosecutor's office, and it's 3/4 of a floor in a downtown tower in, Richmond, Virginia, and there's a private paid guard at the front door. Looks like plenty of support staff there running around doing all this stuff. And, what are obviously fairly well paid prosecutors, not paid what big law would pay, but, as far as criminal law goes, well paid. And you look around, and it didn't look, when I was there, like they were short attorneys. Now, I don't know what they're supposed to have, what their complement's supposed to be, but it looked like they were pretty full when I was there. And anyway, you get to that situation, and it's harder to feel sorry for them. But you do understand that, if somebody's short, they're short. But the second problem I have is that, I've seen state-run prosecutors' offices, and I've seen well-run state prosecutors' offices, which I know are running in far lower budgets than the federal government ever thought of paying for the office in Richmond. I mean, I'm talking offices anywhere from one person to 2 to 4 to 20 or 30 with support staff and everything, and they seem to do a pretty good job of it. And the state court, it's they're in court every day. They're doing triage left and right. Which case are we going to go after? Which case are we not going to go after? They don't have some of the luxury of time that the federal courts seem to have, or at least the federal prosecutors seem to have. So they putatively, there's an argument at least that the state prosecutors do more work. Not something I'm going to engage in at the moment, but it's one of those things where I've seen some well-run state offices on far less of a budget. So you think that maybe the feds could run a well-run office, and let me say that they talk about how they haven't got people there, but they seem to still run a fairly well-run office from what I've seen. Of course, it's been a couple of years since I've been in the federal office locally, but they still seem to be fairly active. So, like I say, it's hard to feel sorry for them. I'll try though. Another thing is there are about 3 disturbing points which come out in the letter and in the news articles. The first is obviously the one in the letter where the congressman pointed out. They say, look, we've given you more real money. We've given you increases in the amount of money you get beyond the level of inflation. Your real money has gone up. Okay. That being true, there's no excuse for not filling all the spaces, all the slots. If the complement remains the same, if the amount of slots which are available have remained the same rather than being increased, and I don't know, that's not addressed either in the news articles, but assuming that the number of slots available have remained the same, staff numbers are remained the same, then it doesn't make any sense if they're getting more real dollars that they don't have the prosecutors. Because, obviously, assuming that the DOJ gives raises, somebody's been there 10 years, 15 years, and gets lured away by, the law firm of Bigger and Biggest downtown who's going to pay him $500,000 a year starting out, that when he walks out the door and takes his, let's say, $125,000 pay rate with him. I have no idea what the federal prosecutors get paid, by the way, assistant U.S. attorneys and all that. I don't know what they get paid, so I'm just going to throw numbers out. Assume he walks out and takes $125,000 he's getting paid with him. The new hire, you promote from within, somebody else who's getting $110,000 fills that slot. You hire somebody else new, and he's getting paid $80,000 a year starting out. You've just saved, at least $15,000, maybe more per year, which would seem to say that, if the same amount of slots are there, the same amount of slots should be getting filled if the real money is the same, is increased. And no explanation as to why that hasn't happened, and nothing in the news articles seemed to try to explain it either. There were vague claims of, more work's been thrown out there. Well, that doesn't cut it, because if it was more work, and say you were hiring people to fill a patriot slot, the terrorist slot, then you would have more attorneys, or you'd have, the same number of attorneys. It would just be where they were allocated that has changed. And that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. It seems to be that the number of attorneys has dropped. So there's no real explanation for any of that. And it's very disturbing that if DOJ is getting the money it used to get, that it's not hiring people, and without an explanation. Now, the second thing that was kind of disturbing was, the bounty discussion. And I think that was brought up by the prosecutor's representative. talking about how they bring in more money every year than would be expended fully funding the offices, which I can see, assuming they collect, which I'm fairly sure they do, because your client gets arrested for dealing, and they go in and they take his cars, his house, everything else, try to get every one of his bank accounts, all that good stuff. So they bring it in, and they bring in more money. Let's assume that's absolutely correct. They bring in more money than is expended in keeping the offices and would be expended keeping the offices fully funded. I don't like bounty statutes which fund offices and law enforcement agencies through the bounty they get by arresting certain criminals and everything. I think that's a bad incentive. I don't know that it's unconstitutional or illegal. I just think it's a bad incentive, because then you might pass up a less lucrative investigation, which would lead to more harm later down the road, in order to get the more lucrative short-term gain to keep your office doors open. But then again, like I say, I don't know that, or they're not getting funded through the bounties. It's going into the general fund. But you would think that Congress, in its wisdom, would think to fund them to the appropriate level to keep the bounties coming in, because the officers are more than paying for themselves. I mean, I know that's a crude and mercenary way to look at it, but sometimes that's the way you have to look at things, and if the politicians aren't bright enough to catch that, somebody needs to point it out to them. And a third thing that really disturbed me, and it's kind of very collateral actually, is the statement that, well, DOJ took a hit when the INS got moved to Homeland Security. It's not called INS anymore, and I know that. I just can't think of the term for it. I have buddies who do Hispanic law, and they'd know in a second what it is, but I just can't think of it. And when it went, it took all its funds with it, and it was a cash cow. If there's any agency out there that should be cash strapped, it's the INS, because if they're with the amount of illegal aliens and other aliens and everything in this country, if the INS isn't working 24 hours a day, 8 days a week, no other agency should be. The INS has an extra penny; it should be trying to hire another agent or get some sort of program in place or something to try to get things under control. But apparently not. Apparently it's sitting on a good portion of money, which the DOJ is missing. Still shouldn't affect anything a whole lot, but that's the claims that it did. And, well, those are the most disturbing things at the article that actually are pointed out in the article. Like I said, probably the most disturbing thing is that they didn't check anything to see what's actually going on. And finally, I'd like to offer a solution for all you federal prosecutors out there. I'm talking about the head guys, not USAs, and is above your pay grade. I have a solution for you. Okay, now I've seen where the federal prosecutor's office is, the United States Attorney's office, to be technically correct, is in Richmond. It's in a building, there's no such thing as a real skyscraper in Richmond, but it's in a tower in Richmond on the 10th, 11th, 12th floor, something like that. Takes up 3/4 of the floor, right? And I've seen pictures on the internet of the other offices, which seem to be in similarly very nice buildings. My solution for you is that in this age of internet and fax machine and telephone and email, that what you do is you move out of the city. Okay, come out here to where I'm at, because I guarantee you that for the amount of money that you're renting that floor basically in the building in Richmond, you could probably rent my entire building that my office is in. You could probably rent the next the two next to us as well, and have probably at least half your money left over. And I'm here to tell you that would buy a lot of paper clips and accordion files and envelopes and all this sort of stuff. And you might, at the end of the year, if it saves you enough, you might actually be able to hire one or two more AUSAs and It's not bad out here, folks. You like it. Good people, personable. Nobody, when you walk down the street, you're not really worried about getting mugged at night like you are in Richmond. It's not bad. Sure, you're not right next to the courthouse, but what you do there, you can handle that. You take your two most, junior AUSAs, you stick them in the library in case something comes up, some sort of emergency, and they can get grabbed by the judge and yelled at for whatever went wrong, and or stuck into some little case that's going on, because one would assume the big cases that there'd be an attorney there for them. So there shouldn't be too much problems with that. I mean, let's see, what else would there be? If you really, really wanted to save money, you could move out to like Powhatan County instead of Chesterfield or Henrico, or you probably build a place out there and save and be about a third of what you cost in Richmond. Somehow I doubt that's going to happen. Somehow I doubt any of this is going to happen. I just offering a suggestion. Just trying to do my part to help the U.S. Attorney's Office in Richmond. If you're lacking money. There's plenty of space out here. As a matter of fact, they're looking to build all sorts of stuff at Midlothian and 288. You could probably get yourself a really nice office on the cheap. You need to think about it. Well, that's been my helpful hint for the day, and now it's time to move on to the next story. So the next thing we're going to discuss is supermaxes and the death penalty. Now, Professor Berman over at Sentencing Law and Policy has been talking about this. This is kind of what inspired me here. And he's although he had been doing it previously, I believe, he's basically riffing off of an NPR series. And the NPR series, the obvious point of the NPR series is the supermaxes are not humane. They're just a terrible punishment. Now, I'm going to read a section that Professor Berman has, I don't know if he copied it or how he got it, but it's from the NPR reports, which admittedly I have not listened to the NPR reports, and y'all feel free to go listen to them, but I haven't. Everything is gray concrete, the bed, the walls, the unmovable stool. Everything except the combination stainless steel sink and toilet. You can't move more than 8 feet in one direction. The cell is one of 8 in a long hallway. From inside you can't see anyone or any of the other cells. This is where the inmate sleeps, eats, and exists for 22.5 hours a day. He spends the other 1.5 hours alone in a small concrete yard. One inmate is standing just behind the door of his cell. It's difficult to make eye contact because you can only see one eye at a time. He's a 40-something man from San Fernando, California, sent to prison for robbery. He was sent to the Supermax for being involved in prison gangs. He's been in the cell for 6 years. The only contact he's had with 6 years is a pinky shake, sticking the pinky out the door and touching people, with their pinky. Inside the Supermax, there's a skylight 2 stories up. On an overcast day, it's dark, and so are the cells. There are no windows. Inmates will not see anything except their cell. They will rarely, if ever, see the giant gray building they live in. Their world, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, is this hallway. There are 132 hallways at Pelican Bay just like this one. They are all full. Every month, officers squeeze soap, shampoo, and toothpaste into paper cups for the inmates. They are issued a jumpsuit, but in the 2 days of the facility, there doesn't seem to be a single prisoner wearing one. All of them are wearing their underwear, white boxer shorts, t-shirts, and flip-flops. When inmates do go crazy, there's another part of the prison for them, the psychiatric Supermax. In the psychiatric Supermax at Pelican Bay, one inmate stands in the middle of the cell, hollering at no one in particular. Another bangs his head against the cell door. Many inmates are naked, some exposing themselves. The psychiatric Supermax is full, all 128 beds. 1 in 10 inmates in segregation is housed here. There's even a waiting list. So, obviously, we're supposed to take from this that it's inhumane. They're fed given basic hygiene, allowed a little bit of exercise, but no contact with other people at all. I had always figured that a supermax would at least have TV or radio available to people just to keep them calmed, but apparently not this one, at least. And like I said, the obvious conclusion we're supposed to get is this is inhumane, and it is. I mean, if you stuck me in an 8x6 or whatever it is cell for the rest of my life, I'd not be, wouldn't feel like I was fairly treated. The problem is this. I see this as an either-or proposition. You've got the death penalty on one side of the either, and the on one side of the or, and you got the supermaxes on the other side of the or. So, if you don't believe in a death penalty, you have to have something like supermaxes available. Death penalty, both of these eliminate future dangerousness. Now, it is nigh unto impossible to eliminate future dangerousness in most prisons. The effort's made, no doubt. The guards try, but you just can't eliminate it. The prisoners will figure out how to make a weapon. They will attack each other. They'll attack guards. They'll throw things. They'll do all sorts of stuff. So, the only way to deal with that in its entirety is a supermax, where the prisoner can't harm anyone other than possibly himself. So, that's one way of dealing with that prisoner who is going to be dangerous for the end of his day, until the end of his days, or until he's 60 or 70 or whatever. Maybe you set a supermax with a 10-year limit so that after 10 years they come out and are able to go back to a high security place. I don't know whether that's what the policies are in general, but that might be a decent policy to follow. Anyway, the supermaxes are one solution to the future dangerousness problem. Now, mind you, let me say one other thing. I don't think that supermax has to always be someone who has gotten there just directly from a trial. It could be, as the person who's pointed out in this article, someone who's gone into prison and become, say, an enforcer for some gang or something like that. He's already in prison for 60 years. He knows the life sentence. So what does he care if he beats up another guard, beats up another prisoner? He may be worried about killing somebody because that might actually put him on death row, but short of killing, there's nothing he cares about because he knows he's not getting out before he's dead anyway. So, what's your credible threat? Well, you got the death penalty, but he's got to kill somebody to do that. Your other credible threat is supermax. I mean, you locking somebody up for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days in solitary and then letting them back with the regular prisoners where they just take up with the same gang they were with before, that ain't accomplishing a whole lot. You send them to supermax for however many years, 5, 10, whatever, that accomplishes a bit. And as long as it's a credible threat, which means you send people who actually, go over the top to the supermax, it becomes a very, very useful way to remove those who are going to be dangerous to other members of the prison community and to enforce a nonviolent edict on those who are bright enough that despite the fact they might have been dangerous to the prison community, they won't be because they don't want to go to the supermax. So you got one side, is the supermax. The other side is the death penalty. If you do away with the supermax, you're going to have to expand who is subject to the death penalty, because these people who are dangerous enough to go to the supermax would need to go, still need to be removed from society somehow. And your other option is you hang them until dead, or shoot them, or gas them, or whatever is thought to be the most humane at the moment. You do this so that you preserve society, that they are not a future danger to anybody. So you can't have it both ways. You know, if you change the Supermax to where it's just a normal high security prison, well, then you're going to get the same problems you get every high security prison. I've seen this somewhat. I've seen it more in DJJ. The local DJJ facility, Department of Juvenile Justice, the local DJJ facility for the longest time was the top DJJ facility, meaning that if the kid was the worst of the worst, whether it meant he came in the worst of the worst, convicted of rape, murder, robbery, juvenile life plus 5, something like that, and that guy would go straight to the juvenile facility I'm talking about. Or you could have the kid who, went to another juvenile facility, got in a fight, joined a gang, did everything wrong, and he gets upgraded and put into this juvenile facility. Now, obviously, there was a lockdown section for a long time called behavioral management, but this was not a lockdown facility. It wasn't a Supermax. This is a kids facility. And until recently, when they changed what the top facility was to, I think, Culpeper, this facility was a war zone. They were just going at it constantly with the guards, with each other, whatever, constantly going back to courts. If you put that kind of thing, you put that kind of group together in a situation, and you don't have the kind of controls that you do in a Supermax, you're going to get problems. You're going to get people beating on each other. You're going to get people attacking each other. You're going to get people attacking guards. I can testify to this. I've been in that facility, and I know of what I speak. Although I will say, the lockdown area, the behavioral management area, yeah, there are people who yelled out the doors, but there wasn't a whole lot of trouble because they were locked in those rooms, and they could not be a danger to themselves or anyone else. So I know it works. It is a cruel treatment. There's no doubt about it. Locking somebody in a room by himself with no one else to talk to or interact with is cruel. But I think that if you don't agree with the death penalty, or you think the death penalty should be very rarely enforced, that the Supermaxes are the necessary step that you have to keep from using execution on a larger number of people. Just my opinion, and I know there's a lot of you out there who are going to flame me on this, but that's the way I feel about it. You got a choice, A or B. You either broaden who gets executed in order to secure the safety of the citizenry, or you have Supermaxes, which are meant to keep people who are potentially very, very dangerous, and have demonstrated that potential, to keep them from being able to harm others. And the people in there, they're not going to live the best life in the world, but they're not going to harm anybody, and we're not going to be stained with the sin of having to execute them. So I think in the end, a Supermax, while distasteful, we should never be happy to send somebody to a place like that. We should never be happy to send anyone to prison. It's a distasteful event which must be done. While distasteful, a Supermax is a necessity. That's my opinion, and I'll be glad to entertain comments. Thank you. And the final topic I'm going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, is an execution this week in Virginia. Now, anyone who's been around long, been watching these videos for a while, probably saw the one I did maybe a year and a half ago about comparing the Catechism's position, the Catholic Church's position, myself being Catholic, against the position or the statute, the Virginia statute, and talking about what overlaps there were and how in some ways both were broader than the other. And to be overgeneralistic. Basically, the Catechism's position is that the death penalty is something which is reserved for people who have proven that they are too dangerous to other members of society to remain alive, that there's no other way of stopping them from being violent and harmful to society. The last week there was an execution, and this gentleman, I believe, falls within the range of what the Catholic Church teaches. It would be an acceptable execution. Now, not a bishop, a cardinal, a theologian, member of the magister, the curia, anything like that. This is my opinion. I am a layman in the Catholic Church, which means that it's just an opinion. But this gentleman, whose name was Michael Lenz, was in prison for a burglary and firearm charge. The articles don't say exactly what the firearm charge was about, but a burglary and a firearm charge. He was executed because what he had done, well, let me give a little background. He gets into prison, and he and prisoner number 2 form a pagan group. And I'm not talking about pagan as in bike gang. I'm talking about pagan as in pagan group. Another prisoner later comes along and tries to wrest control of this group from them. Apparently some sort of power struggle goes on. One day when they're having their religious meeting, Mr. Lenz and his buddy call the third person up, and they stab him 68 times, killing him. Now, I realize the reality in prisons are such that it's a dangerous place, but it's also supposed to be a place where you're on heightened alert that you're not supposed to act in a dangerous way. That the theory is that it's a safer place because there are guards and everything to keep things from happening. You have to make an effort to be able to do something like this. And I think that in this case, the act they undertook, the fact they were already in a prison, the act they undertook shows future dangerousness, and shows a future dangerousness which is almost impossible to overcome. Now, mind you, I guess the Supermax would have worked, but there again, there's always the possibility in a Supermax that somebody could be, the guards have to come in contact at some time with them, even if it's just because they refuse to leave their room or something like that, or they refuse to clean their room or whatever. And there's possibility of future contact. And this man has shown himself to be violent, and it's a continuing violence. And I think that as much as I find it distasteful, this is an appropriate execution. Wish these things never had to happen ever, but when someone goes this far to show that they're going to be continuing to be violent, I think it's a situation where you have to act in the best interest of all members of society, even if it's just other, this is a terrible way to put it, even if it's just other inmates. Whether they're inmates, guards, counselors, whomever, you have to act in the best interest of society and stop this person from harming others in the future. And that's what I think this execution accomplished. This is a man who I think probably would have acted violently again in the future at some point, and therefore I think the execution was valid. I know there's a lot of you out there who will disagree with me on this, and I will say, for me to think an execution is valid, I think the bar has to be fairly high. Tom out there seeking justice would probably hold the bar a little bit lower than me. And I offer this to Tom as one case where he doesn't have to go back to the 17th, 16th century to find justification for an execution. I think this is justifiable under the current catechism as it stands. And so that thoroughly depressing note, I'm going to call it a day, and I will talk to you all next week.